Exploring AWS. In this video, we're going to talk about Amazon's Storage Gateway. Now, Storage Gateway is a really cool way to get started easily in the cloud. And what I mean by that is when you think about different cloud services and you think about all the different architectures and you think about, okay, what are we going to move? What are we not going to move? It can be really, really overwhelming. It can be really complicated to try and figure out how you're going to architect things in the cloud. An easy way to start is actually by starting to move some of your storage. Now, the way that essentially this works, this is a very scalable solution to start moving some of your back-end storage to the cloud. So basically, the way that this works is you have your on-prem data center. And obviously, you have storage needs and requirements within that on-prem data center. If you think about backups, for example, this is where I see a lot of my customers start. So you have your backups, and typically you want to store these backups off-site. And if you think about how we did these things 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even, we would typically store them on tape, or we would replicate across data centers, and it can be very expensive. So essentially, what happens is that Amazon Storage Gateway is an appliance, if you will. So it's essentially a VM appliance that lives in your existing on-prem infrastructure. And this appliance then almost creates a storage VPN. This is essentially why they call it a storage gateway into your cloud storage. Okay. So what's happening is without having to go through a ton of network changes, without having to make routing changes and all these kinds of different things, you essentially have this VM appliance that lives in your environment that forms, again, that storage VPN. And there's a number of different ways, there's a number of different models that you have. And I just kind of want to show you a little bit of how this works because, again, I'm big on not building slides and showing you guys where to actually go to read this information by yourself. By the way, if you're studying for your cloud practitioner exam, reading the white papers is going to be a huge win for you. In my humble opinion, you're really not going to be able to pass this exam. It's not that hard, right? It's not like you're CCIE or something. But, you really need to go and read the white papers. You need to have a basic understanding of what these services are, which is why I show them. I don't want to show you guys slides where you're like, oh, okay, that's all there is. No, there's going to be little detailed questions that, nobody's going to put in a slide. And you're going to want to read the white paper to kind of figure that out. But if you look right here, this storage gateway, it essentially allows you to use all of your standard storage protocols like NFS, for example, SMB. If you go for, you have three different gateways here, which essentially we're going to talk about in just 1 second. So you have the tape gateway, you have the volume gateway, you have the file gateway. So, if you want to use the file gateway, you can present an NFS share to your on-prem servers. Meanwhile, that NFS share that's being presented to your on-prem servers is really living in the cloud. So it's pretty cool. If you think about iSCSI, for example, you may have that legacy backup system. You may have a virtual, you may have a virtual drive presented to that backup system where instead of backing up to physical tape, you now have this virtual drive that's being presented to that server where you're actually backing all of your data up to the cloud. Now, are there costs associated with that? Sure. I mean, you're not going to grow this to 14 terabytes, for free, right? But at the same time, when you calculate in that offsite backup cost for, I can't even remember Iron Mountain or something like that, right? For Iron Mountain to come and take your backup tapes in their nifty Iron Mountain truck and assure you that it was stored in the middle of a mountain behind a vault and all that kind of stuff, you can just back this stuff up to the cloud. So it is a pretty cool feature, and I just want to open up here in a couple separate tabs here for a minute. The different gateways just to show you guys a graphical representation of what this looks like. So, for example, if I want to go with a tape gateway, it's very, very simple, right? So I have my backup server here. I have what I would normally have connected as an iSCSI drive, but instead of that iSCSI drive, I'm going to have the tape gateway deployed. And again, this is really just a VM. So that VM essentially is going to go over the interwebs, right? It's going to connect to your Amazon storage, regardless what that storage is, right? I mean, you can present multiple different kinds of storage here. In this case, we're presenting Amazon S3. So essentially what's happening here is that now, rather than me taking that tape and giving it to Iron Mountain, we'll just say IM, Right now, what's happening is I'm presenting that tape gateway to my backup server. I'm backing up the data to my backup server. It doesn't matter. I'm still backing it up to that tape gateway. And then that tape gateway is essentially forming that encrypted tunnel over to the Amazon Storage Gateway and then, forwarding that traffic on. So it's actually a really, really cool service to be able to back these things up or to be able to move any data. The same thing with the volume gateway. So this presents essentially that iSCSI drive, if you will, to your on-premise, applications, to your servers, and then it allows us to then send that data to an S3 store or an Amazon bucket or any one of these things. And it's the same thing with there was another one, the file gateway over here, right? So imagine now today, you have different on-prem file servers, right? You have NAS units, you have again backup systems, you have file servers, right? So if you're using traditional file servers, right? I remember back in the day, you'd have a Windows VM, and that Windows VM would have like a 5 terabyte storage LUN presented to it. And, this Windows file server, all my users would have to connect to that file server, that Windows VM, and then essentially they would have all their local files, their shares, all that kind of stuff, attached to that LUN. But we had to back it up, and not only did we have to back it up, but we had to worry about, okay, what happens if the SAN crashes, or okay, we're running out of space, we have to grow it, and all these kinds of things. Again, with the file gateway, with Amazon Storage Gateway, if you go with a file gateway, you don't have to really worry about that anymore, because you present that VM to your file server, and so when your users connect into that file server, essentially they hit the file gateway, and that file gateway is just basically an on-prem gateway appliance that's forming that connection to your Amazon cloud storage. And it's actually really, really easy to set up. So I have the tab open, I think, over here. So I'm just logged into my AWS account. We're not going to go through the full setup because you're probably not going to have to do that in your exam. You just have to know, what it is. If you go to get started, you're going to pick what kind of gateway you want. What are you going to use it for, right? Are you looking to present tape drives? Are you looking to present, like an iSCSI volume? Are you going to replace your file server? And again, this is a really great, easy way for you to start. So I would click next, and this is where you're going to pick how you want to deploy that appliance, right? Are you going to do it on a bare metal? Are you going to do it in VMware? I'm not taking a shot at Microsoft here, but most of my customers are going to go with VMware. But again, you choose your virtual appliance. It gives you the setup instructions here, how to deploy that OVF. You click next. It says, hey, which one of these endpoints are you going to want to present? Is it going to be public? Is it going to be within a VPC? So it's really wizard driven, right? You're going to have to connect to the gateway. You give it the IP address. Like it's really not rocket science to download this appliance and then deploy it in your existing virtual infrastructure. And again, it allows you that very easy, very scalable, very fast access to your back-end Amazon storage. So again, instead of moving applications to the cloud, instead of thinking, okay, we're going to need 6 web servers and 4 database servers, and how are we going to architect it, and what are we going to put in which VPC and what subnet and all. I mean, there's a lot of architecture challenges that come with that. Some customers start with, actually a lot of customers start with their storage instead, because storage is really not that hard, right? You just need space to store stuff. That's all you need. So Amazon Storage Gateway is a really good, easy way for you to start.